Greetings everyone. This is a video on how I will release my new series on a small budget and what you can learn from it. In January next year, I'm going to be releasing a new series and I'm going to detail how I plan to release it, the background to it, and I will go into how I plan to make it succeed and what you can learn from it as a new author. For those of you who have watched my past videos, you might know that my last two series launches have been a success. Both Raid Slayer and Visaria did pretty well, especially Raid Slayer. It got in the top 1000 on the Amazon US store and has made a nice profit ever since. And if you go far enough back, you'll see my very first series launch, the Lost Sun books, absolutely flopped, to put it mildly. So I learnt a lot from the mistakes I made early on and built on the things I did succeed at and had success. Now, I'm not a big name author by any means. I guess I see myself as a blue-collar author, but that doesn't mean you can't learn anything here. If you want to know more about my past series launches, if you haven't seen the videos, I'll link them in the description below. Now, without further ado, this is how I will release my next series.
Welcome to Climb a Mountain, an indie author's journey podcast diary. Follow Riley each week as he charts the progress of his indie author business. What are his plans? What will he try next? How are his book sales going? What can you learn from his experience? This is the Climb a Mountain podcast diary, and here is your host, Riley Morrison.
The first step to releasing a new series is to clearly write the books. My plans for January are to get 3 books out, 7 Days Later 1 and 2 and Raid Slayer 6. For 7 Days Later 1, I actually wrote it back in March and April this year, and I've discussed it a couple of times in my podcast diary videos. But at present I'm writing Raid Slayer 6 and 7 Days Later 2, and I'm just switching from one book to the other, like writing a chapter in one then going to the other. It's been hard to keep track of everything because there's a lot of characters, especially in Raid Slayer, and going back from like a first person perspective in 7 Days Later to a third person perspective in Raid Slayer has been hard, but my goal was to get 150,000 words written in a 6-week period. I'm probably not going to make it to 150,000. It's probably only going to be about 125 to 130,000, but that's still damn good for me. I've had a really bad month this last month with a lot of pain in my shoulder and stuff. I've been in more pain this last month than I've been in years. And yet, for the month I was in so much pain, I actually got more writing done than I ever have before. So I wrote 95,000 words in a month, which is a lot for me. And in future, if I could keep up that sort of production level, I could write a 65,000 word, 70,000 word book in 3 weeks or something, edit it and probably get a book out nearly a month. So as I have these big goals to get 3 books out in January, and I'll go more into the details on how where I'm going to launch them and what days and all that later, I needed to do a lot of writing. I had to write 2 books basically in a 2-month period, November and December. That's why I set such high goal, like a word count goal sort of thing. The minimum I felt I'd require is 150,000, so 75,000 words each. I'm sure Raid Slayer 6 will end up longer than that. I'm trying my best to make sure 7 Days Later 2 doesn't end up longer than that, because book 1's about 85,000 words long. So if you're planning on writing a big book in a month, or multiple books in a month like I am, the best way to do it is to set word count goals, either on a day-to-day level or a month level like I have. Do your best to meet your daily or monthly writing goals, and don't be too hard on yourself if you don't. Like I had a bad month and I didn't always meet my daily goals. All you can do is do your best and keep a track of how many words you write in a day too, because I find that helps. And if you can get other authors to do it, like in a joint spreadsheet, all the better. Just get the words done, because you need content to be able to sell content. So while I might not have met my 150,000 goal target yet, or likely won't, I still wrote a lot and the books are getting done. The first thing, if you're going to have a big month of launching like I am, or even if you're launching your very first book, perhaps this is even more important, is that you have a plan. My plan is incredibly ambitious, but then I've been at this for 2 years, so I sort of know what I'm doing on a level of releasing book level. I have ambitious plans for January, and it goes something like this. 7 days later, Book 1 will release January 10th, Raid Slayer 6 will release January 17th, 7 days later 2 will release January 23rd. Now there's a week between 7 days later 1 and Raid Slayer 6, and then 6 days between Raid Slayer 6 and 7 days later 2. There is 13 days difference between 7 days later 1 and Book 2, and I chose 13 days specifically. Martha Carr and Michael Anderley recommend 13 days for the second book to come out in a rapid release series, because they believe, and a lot of other authors believe, and even I believe because I've seen evidence of it, that there is a 14-day cliff on your books now. It used to be 30 days, now it's 14, the first cliff. Which means Amazon's algorithms won't push your book quite as hard after 14 days unless it's really proven itself as a seller. So by releasing the second book 13 days, like the day before the cliff hits, I hope that it'll slightly boost Book 1 up and have more chance that Amazon will keep pushing it. As to releasing Raid Slayer in between the two, Raid Slayer has a small selection of fans, and I hope by that book being out there and hopefully in some of the same categories as the 7 days later book, I'll make sure of that both my books, Raid Slayer, can help 7 days later, and 7 days later can help my Raid Slayer book and series. I'm going to try to have both series working off each other, basically. Now, if I can't make my word count goals and it doesn't look like I'm going to make it, Raid Slayer 6 can be pushed back. I mean, it'll be upsetting, especially if I have to push it back into February, but I can deal with that. That's a lot of books in a short amount of time, and I really hope it helps push the books. Now obviously if you're a brand new author, you're likely not going to be able to do that with two different series, but I do recommend rapid release, even if you're only can get a couple of books out and then a book out a month after that. Just try to get them out as close together as possible, because it really does help, especially if you're new. You're going to get a lot more free advertising of your books and Amazon pushing them if they do well. Now, an idea to get feedback on your book, like Book 1 or the first few chapters of Book 1, rather than just writing a whole ton of books and then they don't sell, is start putting it up chapter by chapter on something like Royal Road, or find out whatever's good for your genre, might be Wattpad for example, and put it up there and try to get feedback on it to make sure it's something people want to read, because you don't want to put a ton of work into a series that isn't going to sell. And I'm assuming you're watching this if you want to do this as a business and make money. So yeah, if you're not interested in making money or doing this as a business, do whatever you want. You probably don't even need to watch this video. So my plans are ambitious, and we'll see if I can make them. That's the end of part 1 of this new series, where I cover the launches I'm going to be running in January 2020. I decided to break it into multiple videos because there's a lot to go over, and I wanted to do it in bite-sized chunks. And it's a lot of work to make videos and record everything. The next video will cover the books themselves, especially the 7 days later books, why I wrote them, how I targeted the genres that I'm going for, but also the risks I'm taking in releasing it, as it's a bit more of an unknown market, and how I'm aiming at the tropes of the genres I'm aiming the book at. I'll also go into writing to market and the best way to do it. I'll also go into why I chose to do a long pre-order. Both 7 days later books are on a long pre-order, and the benefits of a long pre-order, especially for a new writer. And then I'll go into the covers, because it's related to the right to market part of stuff, and how I wanted my covers to look, the colours and all the rest of it. And then lastly, in that video, I'll show off my new trailer I have made for the 7 days later series, and go into why I decided to make a trailer and what I plan to do with it. Then the video after that will be going into the pre-launch fluff you have to go through as an author, like keywords and categories and writing the blurbs and all the rest of it, and how you should target your blurbs depending on what market you're going for. Then I'll also cover the advertising and how I'm planning to advertise, and how my ads are going to be different this time than I've ever done before, because I'm going to experiment alongside try to get the series to do as well as possible. Then I'll go into my plans after launch and how I plan to promote the book and all the other sort of things I'm going to be doing to help try to get it as high in the store as possible, because there's always a chance this series will fail, and even if it does fail, I'll still cover it. I'll try to point out what I can learn and what you can learn from my failures, if it is a failure. So they're the topics in the upcoming videos, and I'll probably do a post-launch series too, like I did with Raid Slayer, to keep everyone updated on how it's going, what I've learnt and all the rest of it. So there's still a lot more to come, so there should be 3 parts to this series. Well, I hope you learned something from this video. It's going to be a very busy December and January for me, so I better get back to writing. Thanks for listening, everyone. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Riley's Indie Author Journey podcast. Please subscribe and share the podcast with your author friends. Have a good author week writing and selling your books. Until next time, take care.